Welcome to today's webinar on using data to inform transit planning and operations. It's co-hosted with the National Center for Applied Transit Technology at the Community Transportation Association of America, or CTAA. NOCO has teamed up with N-CATT to address best practices on accelerating the deployment of current and emerging transportation system management and operations strategies, both from a practical and technical standpoint. This will help practitioners working within an operations environment to make informed decisions when it comes to managing traffic. Today's webinar will focus on the use of data to improve transit planning and operations. This webinar is being recorded. A recording will be shared on our YouTube page and also in our newsletter, and will be available on the website within the coming week. To get the recording, please follow us on YouTube and register for our newsletter. All participants will be muted throughout. Please use the Q&A box on your Zoom toolbar for any questions for the presenters. For general questions for NOCO or anything else, please use the chat box. We will be handling Q&A after each of the speakers today. This webinar does have closed captioning and transcription options as well. Access to those features can be found on your Zoom toolbar. Before we begin, I just want to thank all of you who are joining us today. We've been working on this for a while, and we're very excited to partner with CTAA on this important topic and to link how TSMO and transit can support each other. NOCO will also be at the upcoming CTAA Expo, which is taking place June 2nd to the 4th in San Diego, California. We had a pretty successful engagement with many of you at last year's Expo, and we look forward to talking with you more this year. So please come by our booth when we're out there. So first up today is going to be Andrew Carpenter from CTAA. He is the director of N-CATT at CTAA, and he's going to give everybody some background on N-CATT and CTAA, and then we're going to hear from two speakers on their data uses for transit. Jennifer Sweeten, who's the director of operations at Mountain Lion Missoula, which is Montana's public transit. And then Hart Evans, who's the statewide planning and program manager at North Carolina DOT. And again, just a reminder, we're going to do Q&A after each speaker, so please feel free to type in your questions to the Q&A box right away so we can moderate any questions. So with that, I'm going to turn things over to Andrew. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Nick. And good afternoon, folks, and also good morning for anyone out west. I'm Andrew. I'm the director of N-CATT, as mentioned. And so we are a technical assistance center. We're funded by the Federal Transit Administration, and we focus on small urban, rural, and tribal transit agencies. So folks like Mountain Lion Missoula are on the larger side of the transit agencies that we work with, all the way down to frontier agencies with one or two buses or vans, and one or two admin staff. And we work with this range of transit agencies to really understand how and what different tech tools can help those agencies accomplish their goals or tackle any challenges that they face. So we don't talk about different tech just for its own sake, but we really dig in with different agencies about what they're hoping to accomplish and then what will get them there. And so we have a variety of resources on our website, which you can scan this QR code to get to the website. And we have guidebooks, fact sheets, worksheets. They're all there to help you think through these various topics, and then also get the beginning ideas of how to plan out, how to use the different tools. So, for example, we have a worksheet on deploying automated vehicles. It's far from an in-depth how-to, but it gives you some basic benchmarks on roughly where the technology should stand to be helpful to you as opposed to more of a burden to be able to start experimenting with AVs. But then also with different fare payment technologies, what'll help you get to what you're hoping to accomplish with your fare policy and your existing capacity. So we have all of that on our website. We also provide a lot of in-person or live support to transit agencies. We have workshops based on data and on mapping and other forms of analysis to help you really understand how to take the information you have and make the most use out of it. We have state technology summits where we will be at state association meetings and work through different topics with those states and help them to better understand priorities that should be set at the state level. So in Michigan, last year we were at their state association meeting, and we helped really get a lot of agencies in on advancing their fare payment technology, for example. So we're in the very beginning stages of helping different agencies understand the first steps that they should be taking. But then also the most fun is our technical assistance teams, also known as our STATs, Strategic Technology Technical Assistance Teams. We love long acronyms, but these are one-on-one PA sessions with N-CATT staff. We also bring in consultants based on different needs. And so this is individual projects with one or a group of transit agencies that are hoping to accomplish different goals. And so we really help assess that agency's needs and then the different technologies that might help them out or help those agencies understand the alternatives that they have available to them based on what they want to do. So we helped a transit agency or a group of transit agencies in New Mexico determine whether or not it made sense to pilot automated vehicles in their area. We've helped a lot of agencies understand where microtransit does or does not make sense in their area. And then also we have helped different transit agencies understand the different options they have for scheduling and dispatching software or different fare payment systems. And so those have led down the line to actually deploying new fare payment systems or procuring new scheduling and dispatch softwares. And also, while it might not seem like progress, but helping different agencies determine not to pursue certain pilots or anything like that based on the state of the technology. So anyone who's interested, please reach out to us. This QR code will get you to our stats page, but then you can also reach out directly to me or email the N-CATT team generally. So one more thing, and this is what kind of pulls everything together here, is N-CATT has launched in the past year our data literacy initiative. And so the goal here is to understand how small transit agencies from the small urban to lower capacity and or more rural areas are how these transit agencies collect and manage and use and make decisions from their data. And so, so this is also, really led by the FTA. And so FTA developed this. Some parts are with NTI, some with AASHTO, some with other centers and organizations that are working in the transit data world. And so what we at N-CATT are doing, first, we currently have a data literacy survey that is out. So if you are a small urban, a rural, or a tribal transit agency, please take our data literacy survey, which is this can't miss it QR code right here. We want information from whoever's on this webinar, but then also any other staff that you have in your agency. And so the idea is to get as much information as possible from as many people within agencies as possible. This way, if a GM uses data, is comfortable with data, but their staff are not, or vice versa, we get a better sense of what this looks like across the industry. And so the whole idea of this is once this survey closes, the last day is June 13th, by the way. Once the survey closes, we'll analyze it, we're working with the Center for Urban Transportation Research on this, and we will start developing curricula for how to help these small transit agencies improve their data literacy, as it were. And so improve work on different techniques and workflows and all of that to improve how they collect and manage and make decisions from data. And so this all feeds into how transit can better work with the other entities in their jurisdiction to work on planning efforts, and then also to better tell their story and to honestly, better request funding and write grants and win grants. And so all of this comes into better understanding the information that you do have, the information that you should have, and how to pull that together and make the most of it. So a lot of the focus is not on again, data just for data's sake, but to really make use of what you already have and understand how to use it better. So, to show data in action and coordinating data across different jurisdictions, that's why we're here. So I will take that opportunity off to Jen. So thank you all.
Okay. Thanks, Andrew. Appreciate all that great information. We're going to move over to Jennifer. And while she's getting her slides up, you could introduce yourself, Jennifer.
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Jen Sweeten. I'm the Director of Operations of Mountain Line in Missoula, Montana. We are a small urban system. As Andrew said, I think I'm sharing.
Good.
So we're a small urban system in Montana. We serve an urban population of about 110,000 people, over 70 square miles. We do this with a fixed route fleet of 30 buses and approximately 20 paratransit and support vehicles. So we, like most small agencies, were slow to embrace data. We really didn't join the modern era until the early 2000s, when we put our first electronic fare boxes in. And that, prior to that, we used paper tickets and paper punches and a cash fare box collector at the front of the bus. So really, we didn't have any documented data other than what was observable to us. We then started utilizing technology, electronic fare boxes, GPX, other scheduling tools, in pretty short order. Data is one of those things, once you start collecting it and start analyzing it and understanding it, it kind of becomes addictive. So one of the first tools that we utilized was planning software. We used a product by Remix. This allowed us to look at our existing route structure, to look at various makeups and elements of our community that we serve, to make sure that we were allocating our resources where they could best be used. So population and jobs, really, that's the first thing a lot of people think about. You want to put your buses where the people are. And that's true. Transit ridership is definitely driven by density, both for housing and employment. But there are other factors that you can look at. Car-free households, where where are people not owning cars for one reason, out of necessity or by option. We also look at social vulnerability. Are we providing a level of service to low and middle income neighborhoods that we should? So we look at all of these data points and we decide where we put our buses and what frequency we run our buses. We do our best to determine where they're going to be most effective. And then we put the buses out there. We drive them around in circles, picking up people and collecting more data. The level of data from vehicles was very limited prior to our ability to use cellular data to connect instantaneously to store data that is being collected. So a modern bus is pretty much a rolling computer. We have CAT AVL systems. We have automatic passenger counters, vehicle monitoring systems, interior and exterior cameras, various route performance KPIs that we can garner from this. But let's not forget the most vocal source of data, which is the public. That is valuable data. They are not shy to tell you how your planning has done to serve them. So you put all these systems together, it is so much data. So you have to make it make sense for you. What do you need the data to show you? It makes sense that as a transient society, people's travel patterns change. So we constantly monitor where people are traveling, when they are traveling, where they're getting on the buses, and where they're getting off the buses. Here's an example. At our university system, this data shows a bus stop that delivers students to the university from our downtown transfer center. And as you can see, most people are using this stop to get off the bus at this location. It makes sense that when they're going home, they are going to use the stop on the other side of the street, and that is what the data proves out. So we collected stop level data for several years, and we used that data for a bus stop improvement project that looked at every single one of our 452 bus stops. And we reevaluated, do we need all those stops? Are the stops what the people who are using it need? And if we had fewer stops, would it make our system more efficient and allow us to provide amenities at bus stops that we hadn't been able to before? Yeah. So we added and upgraded 18 bus stop shelters. We added seating at 51 more bus stops. We made 68 of our busiest bus stops 100% ADA accessible. And because people we also added 50 trash cans at our bus stops. So the level that we use the data for was very similar to what I talked about at the university. If you have a bus stop where people are alighting the bus and going to a location, say it's a major employer, the university, you maybe only need a sign at that bus stop. People generally don't get off the bus and sit before they go in to conduct business. Maybe you need a sign and a semi-seat if some people are boarding the bus there. Maybe you need a bench if a lot of people are using bikes for the first and last mile at that stop. Maybe you want to install bike loops. Sorry, didn't realize I had that built in. Or maybe you need it all. Maybe you need a full service bus stop to serve people that may have to walk a little further to get to a bus stop, but once they get there, they have all the amenities that they need to make that walk a little more bearable. One thing that we noticed as we became a collector and a user of data is that our relationships with other government departments improved dramatically. We were no longer looked at as the people that kept asking for things, but never really giving a lot. Sorry. So it improved as we started sharing our data with our MPO, with our State Department of Transportation. We found that we were more welcome at the table, more invited to planning meetings, to initial planning of annexed areas, new neighborhoods, new development, to really the culmination of our partnership last year when the MPO and Mountain Line collaborated with one planning agency or one planning company to create both the local transit plan and our strategic plan. So yeah, at the end of the day, we had two government documents that actually were in agreement, and we're no longer playing catch up with development and service planning. And with that, any questions?
Okay, thanks, Jen. That was a great presentation. I guess one question is, how often are adjustments made to the service based on data review and whatnot? Is it do you go through a cycle, or is it just random, or whenever you get data, or how do you guys handle that?
It depends. There's a lot that goes into service planning and route changes. Recent laws regarding the ADA now require us to, any time that we add an amenity to a bus stop, we have to make it accessible. So that has increased the cost of adding new service to any rollout. So we really have to make sure that we're going to put service here, and it's going to be, if not permanent, definitely long term. So we try to reevaluate and do service changes annually. But we're not a fast-growing community, so actual service changes usually only hit every 2 to 3 years.
Okay, well, thanks again. Appreciate you joining us today. And we're going to shift things over now to Hart.
All right, thank you. Let me know if y'all can see my screen just to make sure.
Yeah, looks good.
Okay. My name is Hart Evans. I'm the statewide planning and program manager for the North Carolina Department of Transportation's Integrated Mobility Division. And one of the programs that I oversee is our intercity bus program. So throughout North Carolina, we subsidize 11 different routes. And we have 2 carriers. 7 are operated by Greyhound, and 4 are operated by Sunway Charters in North Carolina. We fund the program through 5311F state funds, and we utilize in-kind match for the 5311 funds through Greyhound's unsubsidized service. We're currently working on a new brand with consistent standards. Our ridership is increasing since COVID. I think we had about 160,000 riders last year on our system, and we're relocating stops that are more connected to the multimodal network. So some key objectives and goals of our program. We not only look at just ridership data, but we also look at connectivity to rural communities. North Carolina is a very unique state in the sense that we have some very major urban areas, but then we also have a lot of people in rural areas as well that aren't accessible. And 1 in 10 North Carolinians do not have access to a vehicle at all, or most of the time. So, we're trying to make sure that we deliver on that underserved population that needs to access not only different parts of our state, but the national intercity bus network. So ridership data is not always our focus when we plan new routes and services. For example, Southern Pines is a community of about 15,000 people outside of Raleigh. And, we between the Raleigh and Southern Pines route, we have about 1 rider every single day. And so, for us, having 1 consistent rider at that stop every single day coming to and from Raleigh is pretty big for us. And it's not just about trying to get that number up to 20 or 30 riders a day. It's more about helping serve that 1 rider and making sure that we are connecting a more rural place to a major urban area, then can get them to other places. So we want to make sure that we make key connections to other major routes and services. So for example, getting those people from Southern Pines to Raleigh allows people to connect to all of our other different intercity bus routes, unsubsidized routes by Greyhound and FlixBus and Barron's Bus, as well as our Amtrak service and the airport. Here's a quick map of all of our subsidized services that we provide. Like I said, there are 11 routes, and we have pretty good coverage throughout the state, providing, all outreach into all the different very rural places. And we do have some stops, especially kind of in the eastern part of the state, that are very utilized, that are very rural in nature. So, our system may be a little more comprehensive than some other intercity bus systems in other states. But I guess, we're focusing more on that rural connectivity. And this map here shows some of our blue subsidized service overlaid with the red unsubsidized services from Greyhound, for example, and Barron's Bus. So, as we plan our subsidized routes, we want to think about the connectivity between all the different subsidized routes, but then we also have to plan for all the unsubsidized routes as well, to make sure that those connections that go outside of the state are key, and we're not making passengers wait too terribly long between to make those connections. So in terms of extra collaboration with other states and trying to get more people outside of North Carolina, not just looking inside North Carolina, we started talking about the Triad Danville connector. That was a short gap in our network right now that led up to Danville, Virginia. The Virginia Breeze, which is the Virginia Department of Public Transportation and Rail, that's their service that they pay for, that's operated by Megabus. They have two routes that pulse through Danville, Virginia. One of them is the Capital Connector, and the other one's the Piedmont Express. And that provides direct connectivity to DC, Charlottesville, and Richmond. So we wanted the people in our Triad region to be able to access the Virginia services quicker, and then in turn access the national intercity bus network in a greater efficiency. So between that, that low-hanging fruit of, the 60-mile connection to connect to two other major intercity bus routes, paired with some anecdotal feedback we'd received, as well as a study that Danville, Virginia had done that found that their transit-dependent riders were looking to try to get into North Carolina and vice versa, and back into Virginia. So there was like the regional need for this service, but then there's also the national intercity bus connectivity piece. Another key point to make here is that this was previously an unsubsidized route that Greyhound provided prior to 2018. So at one point, the ridership was well enough that Greyhound was able to prop it up on their own. And then after 2018, it became unprofitable and they removed that service. So it seemed like it was a good idea for us to kind of pick that up. And it also points to, trying to collaborate more with our neighbors and connect more across state borders. People don't stop at the border of North Carolina and Virginia and get off the bus. They want to keep going. I think a previous statistic was over 70% of intercity bus riders in North Carolina went across state lines. So, want to make sure that we get people greater connectivity to the north there. So talking a little bit about the collaboration we did with Virginia. First of all, North Carolina Department of Transportation initiated that conversation. We reached out to Virginia and talked about their stop and how they currently operated in Danville. We had to look at Danville, or the Virginia Breeze's on-time performance in Danville, their arrival and departure times and all that stuff, and making sure that we didn't impede on their schedule and connectivities. So that took months of planning and trying to look at different schedules and routes to make sure that everything was overlaid, and we were able to adjust times on our network to make the connections that we needed to. So essentially what we came up with, we were able to create a pretty much a seamless transfer from all the way in Winston-Salem to Danville, which then would lead to those two routes. And there's like a 15-minute boarding or waiting time for those passengers. We worked to provide ticket sales. So we interlined the tickets, and I'll talk about that a little bit more in a minute, so that passengers could purchase one ticket and have access to both buses, because a lot of passengers don't want to go through the process of having to identify the different routes that are available and then book two separate tickets. It's easier if the system kind of does that for them. And the system is not perfect, and we're still having to work out some kinks there that we have come across as we have launched the service. We had to establish operations and communications plans between both providers to ensure easy passenger transfer. For example, the Virginia Breeze route that comes down from DC into Richmond sometimes experiences delays on 95 in the afternoons from traffic. And so making sure that our bus doesn't leave Danville to head back into North Carolina before that bus arrives was very important. And then, of course, we had to do joint press releases and a communications and marketing rollout. And this process is kind of ongoing too, because we want to, since it is a new service, we want to make sure that people know that this connection exists. And I think that's something that, all transit agencies struggle with to some extent is, just making sure that their services and routes and things are marketed well to the public so people have the most up-to-date information and know where to go to find out those service changes. Here's a quick schedule of our Triad Danville connector route. As you can see, it starts in. Let's see if I can move this really quick. So it starts in Winston-Salem at 5:10 in the morning and then heads to Danville. And then it arrives at 7:15 in Danville. And that at 7:30 is when the Virginia Breeze services depart Danville and head north into Richmond and DC and Charlottesville and DC, respectively. And then in the afternoon trip, when it comes back, those buses from Virginia come back to Danville around 7 o'clock. So then our buses leave Danville and head back into North Carolina at 7:15 p.m. So we wanted to make sure that we had a very quick window of time that we didn't have passengers waiting. Here's our brochure that we have. Just kind of want to talk briefly about connectivity to transit and other modes. This map may be difficult to see, but when we were thinking about our stop locations in different places, we really wanted to make sure that we were tying in and having as much connectivity as possible. Part of our goal at NCDOT as we kind of breathe life into the intercity bus program is making sure that we are focused on different areas where transit is located, making sure that they're in city centers or town centers to make sure that they're centrally located. Over the past 20 years, intercity bus has sometimes been pushed out to the periphery of the cities and towns, and then not so good gas stations and other locations that aren't accessible for our riders. So with these 4 locations, we want to make sure that we were located in the transit centers for each of these. So in Winston-Salem, we are connecting to a regional transit system as well as the local transit system at their main transit hub. In Greensboro, we are connecting to the local and regional transit system as well as Amtrak service. In Reidsville, we are connecting to the local transit center or the local transit at the Walmart, which is where all their routes pulse. And then in Danville, we're at their transit center and connect there from to their local transit as well as the Virginia Breeze. So making sure that we're in those downtown cores that are walkable and bikeable and accessible, and are connected to all the different transit routes that are available in those areas. As I mentioned, with interlining, we currently leverage the interlining process to make sure that we have one ticket. So our North Carolina service and the Virginia service is able to be booked on one ticket on the Megabus website. So when you enter in your start and stop destinations, that kind of does that for you for the rider, and they don't have to sit there and think and compare schedules and stuff. It just shows them they have one ticket that's scanned at both buses, and they get on. So there's some examples. If I were to go to Winston-Salem to Washington DC, or go from Greensboro, North Carolina to Charlottesville, Virginia, you're just going to have one ticket. It does show that there's a transfer, but there's not any extra work needed on the rider side. So we want to make it as effortless as possible. But like I said, sometimes it is difficult to have all the different systems and things talk to each other. So when like for North Carolina, when we were working with 2 different carriers, Sunway Charters and Greyhound, right now Greyhound and Megabus aren't set up to interline their tickets. So we're having, trying to work through those issues and make sure that, people don't care who the carrier is or who is subsidizing the service. They just want that one ticket, want to know what their connectivity options are, and we want the site to show them all their different options. And then just some quick ridership numbers since we launched the service in January 15th of 2025. We started out with a few riders, and we have slowly trickled up over the past 3 months as word has gotten out that the service has existed. We would like to see this ridership, increase further. And I think with our marketing efforts and more coordination with the local communities, we will see these numbers continue to rise. And just want to kind of point out that, while ridership is important, is not our sole focus here on this. And we are trying to provide, the additional connectivity into the state of Virginia and to kind of bolster the national intercity bus network. So I think the key takeaways here, are, making sure we coordinate with our neighboring states and our neighboring agencies to see how we can better integrate our service and make it easier for our riders. Because I don't think that any riders really care about which system they're on or state lines or urban lines and stuff. They just want to get from where they want to go to where they need to get to. And I think, we should be more cognizant of that in our transit planning efforts. And this is my contact information if you have any questions. And I think that is it for me.
Okay, thanks, Hart. Couple questions for you. How does data you may have inform the intercity bus ridership goals and just operations objectives just in general?
Yeah, so about once a year we look at our ridership metrics, and it's really about budget too. If we have the budget to continue to maintain the service that we provide, even if we have, say, certain routes that ridership has fallen or not done as well as other routes, we may continue to keep them on the system just for that rural connectivity piece. And likewise, there probably are some stops that we don't really get much ridership on at all in these rural areas, but we do have 5 to 10 riders a month. And our bus is already going through there. So in our eyes, taking 10 minutes out of our schedule to then serve that stop at all times is kind of seen as more beneficial than cutting it and saving 10 minutes on the overall schedule. So, we closely monitor ridership. If there's a stop that's not serving anybody for months on end, we're going to cut that service. And then looking at, trying to make sure that, if there's a ridership where we have increased ridership in certain areas, making sure that we have enough service to those different places. For instance, our Wilmington to Charlotte route is very popular, and we have to kind of monitor that to make sure that our timetables and stuff are helping serve the need there and get most people there in a timely manner. So in terms of ridership data, that's something we look at, but it's still definitely not something that we're just really keen on right now. But ridership does help subsidize our routes. The more riders we have, the cheaper our service is, and the less state and federal funds we have to use to fund the services. So that is definitely something we take into consideration.
Right. Okay, another question. Can you explain a bit more how the unsubsidized services are used in lieu of contributions?
Yeah, so that could be, I guess, a whole presentation probably.
Okay.
But essentially, like any intercity bus carrier like Greyhound in our case, they provide trips that they as part of their profitable network, they do anyway. So for per FTA, we can then string together our subsidized route with their unsubsidized routes to make one giant route. And then we take the cost of what Greyhound pays to operate their unsubsidized route, and we count that as local match. In a sense, it essentially doubles the cost of the service that Greyhound is charging us, but then they only get reimbursed for half of it. So it's definitely it's definitely an interesting topic, and I know that there are resources for that. And I think about 37 states now leverage in-kind match in some capacity, but there are still different states that out there that are not utilizing the in-kind match because it is kind of like a black box to some people. But I definitely encourage anybody to reach out if they have, want more information on in-kind match. But it is real, it works, it's fake money, but FTA allows us to do it. So I think it's a great tool to fund stuff that may not be funded otherwise, because we wouldn't be able to have the level of service we do in our state without in-kind match.
Yeah, and I'm assuming if there's a state out there that was interested in moving in that direction, I'm sure the FTA probably has a lot of resources that would be available for them to take a look at and maybe ask some questions on how to do that. Is that your understanding?
Yeah, for sure. And I think, Greyhound is actually working with, I think it's AASHTO right now, to kind of help identify which routes that they have that are unsubsidized that can be used as in-kind match throughout the country.
Okay.
So you'll be able to kind of check out and see, oh, like Greyhound is operating this route that is unsubsidized. If I can tie into this, I can leverage this route as in-kind match in my state. So it kind of would give the lay of the land there for that. But I think that's something that's coming up, in the next 6 to 8 months.
Right. Okay, one last question. So how did Hurricane Helene affect any of your services in terms of when it happened? And I'm sure you may have. I saw you had some services there in the western part of the state. So how did that all pan out, and where do you stand today?
So the service in the northern part of the state around the Boone, Wilkesboro, Lenoir area, that was suspended temporarily for just a few days, and then service resumed once we had all the roads cleared and everything. Because we are using interstates and stuff like that. The Asheville situation is a little bit different of a story, because our stop there completely got destroyed, and the issue with I-40 being closed to traffic, it was decided by Greyhound. I guess according to this map, it shows that we subsidize the service all the way from Asheville to Franklin, but that's actually a connector bus, so that's not totally accurate. But our subsidized service stops in Asheville, and Greyhound picks up from there and does their profitable route into Tennessee. So it was Greyhound's choice to stop service into Tennessee temporarily. So we right now don't serve the western part of the state between Hickory, Newton, and Asheville, and Forest City and Asheville. We are working with the city of Asheville right now to restore service and get into their transit center, since our stop was destroyed in Asheville. And it's been quite a process to kind of, restore that service and get those people back on the network. But yeah, the northern part of the state in the western part was pretty much unfazed, but as far as intercity bus travel goes. But our friends in Asheville and further west are still being impacted to this day because of it, because of the infrastructure challenges we had. And we're hoping to get the Asheville stop back online sometime in mid-June.
June, okay. Yeah, okay. I think those are all the questions that we had. If anyone else has any questions, now is your opportunity to either ask Hart or Jen any questions that you may have. Otherwise, I think we can close this session out, and just wanted to acknowledge all of the valuable information that both Hart and Jen shared, as well as Andrew has shared from CTAA. And also would want to just express our gratitude for their time and effort, just because, as many of you know, there's lots that goes into putting these presentations together. But folks can also reach out to any of us if you have specific questions. And then I also, as the director of NoCo, just want to encourage everyone to stay engaged with us as we, want to build our relationship up with CTAA as well, by being out at the expo, and then maybe continue doing some additional work together. So, and if anybody has any ideas, or if there are projects out there you'd like to hear more about, just feel free to, reach out to us. And with that, unless anybody has anything else you'd like to share from the panel, does anyone? Okay, well, thank you very much for everyone's time, and hope you have a great rest of your day today.